Somewhere right now you're telling yourself you're confused about something, a decision, a relationship, a direction in your life, and I want to challenge that word before we go any further. Because in my experience, real confusion, the kind where you genuinely lack the information needed to know what to do, is far rarer than people think. Most of what gets labeled confusion isn't a lack of information at all. It's something else entirely, something far more specific and far more solvable. If you're willing to look at it directly instead of hiding behind the comfortable fog of "I just don't know," today I want to take that fog apart, piece by piece, and show you what's actually sitting underneath it in most cases, because once you see it clearly, the confusion tends to dissolve almost immediately, not because you learned something new, but because you finally stopped avoiding something you already knew. Section 1. Confusion is rarely what it claims to be. When someone tells me they're confused about a major decision, the first thing I've learned to do is stop taking that word at face value. Confusion sounds neutral, almost innocent, like a simple gap in knowledge waiting to be filled with the right piece of information. But if you sit with most people long enough while they describe their confusion, you start to notice something. They're not actually missing information. They can usually list in detail every option in front of them, every likely outcome, every relevant factor. What they're missing isn't data, it's a willingness to commit to what that data is already telling them. Real confusion is quiet. It doesn't come with the constant, restless churning most people describe when they say they're confused. That churning is usually a sign of something entirely different, and once you learn to recognize the difference, you stop wasting years waiting for clarity that was never actually the problem in the first place. Section 2. What you're actually avoiding. Here's the truth that's uncomfortable enough that most people would rather stay confused than face it. In a large number of cases, you already know the answer. You knew it before you started calling it confusion. The label "I'm confused" is often a socially acceptable way of saying, "I don't want to accept what I already know," because admitting that out loud requires acting on it. And acting on it often means walking away from something comfortable, disappointing someone you care about, or facing a version of your life that feels harder in the short term even though it's more honest. Confusion becomes a hiding place. As long as you're technically still deciding, you don't have to actually do anything. You don't have to face the grief of ending something or the fear of starting something uncertain. I've watched people describe agonizing confusion over relationships where, the moment you ask one honest question, "Does this person treat you the way you deserve?" the answer arrives instantly, with no hesitation at all. That's not confusion. That's knowledge you're not ready to act on yet, wearing a mask that makes it feel less like a choice you're avoiding and more like a mystery you haven't solved. Section 3. The real cause is often competing desires. Sometimes it's not avoidance, it's something slightly different but just as commonly mislabeled, and that's the presence of two genuine, legitimate desires pulling in opposite directions. You want stability and you want adventure. You want to protect a relationship and you want your independence back. You want to stay loyal to a path you've already invested years into, and you want the freedom to start something entirely new. This isn't confusion in the sense of not knowing, it's the discomfort of wanting two real things that can't both be fully satisfied at the same time. People call this confusion because it feels the same from the inside, that same unsettled, unresolved sensation, but the actual work required is completely different. Confusion asks you to gather more information. Competing desires ask you to grieve the option you're not choosing, and to accept that a mature decision often means losing something real in exchange for something else real, rather than finding some perfect option that costs you nothing at all. Most people stall here for years, waiting for a version of the choice that doesn't require any loss, and that version simply doesn't exist. Section 4. You don't have a standard to decide against. There's a more structural reason confusion shows up, and it has nothing to do with emotion at all. It has to do with the absence of a clear personal standard. If you've never taken the time to define what actually matters most to you, your core values in order of priority, then of course every decision feels overwhelming. Because you're trying to weigh options without any fixed reference point to weigh them against. Without a clear hierarchy of what matters, every choice becomes an exhausting, from-scratch negotiation because there's no established internal compass doing the weighing for you. This is why two people can look at the exact same job offer, the exact same relationship, the exact same opportunity, and one decides in an afternoon while the other agonizes for months. It's rarely that one person has more information than the other. It's that one of them has already done the deeper work of knowing what actually matters to them, so the decision becomes a simple act of comparison, while the other is essentially trying to build their entire value system in real time, under pressure, which will feel like confusion every single time. Section 5. Fear wearing the costume of uncertainty. The last hidden cause I want to name is fear, specifically fear of the consequences that would follow if you admitted the truth to yourself. This is different from simple avoidance because it's less about not wanting to face reality and more about a genuine, visceral fear of what happens after you do. If you admit you already know you need to leave a job, you have to face the fear of financial instability. If you admit you already know a friendship has run its course, you have to face the fear of loneliness in the space it leaves behind. Confusion, in this case, functions almost like an anesthetic. It numbs the sharp edge of an answer you're not ready to feel the full weight of yet. The mind will often choose the dull, ongoing discomfort of staying stuck over the sharp, immediate discomfort of accepting a difficult truth, even when staying stuck costs far more over time. Naming this as fear instead of confusion doesn't make the fear disappear, but it does finally point you toward the actual work, which isn't gathering more information. It's building the courage to face what the information has already told you. Section 6. What actually dissolves it? If most of what we call confusion is really avoidance, competing desires, a missing standard, or fear in disguise, then the solution looks nothing like what people usually try first. Waiting for more clarity to arrive on its own rarely works because clarity was often already there, buried under a layer of resistance. What actually works is asking a more precise question than "What should I do?" Ask instead, "What am I avoiding admitting to myself right now?" Ask what I would do if I weren't afraid of the consequences. Ask what I actually value most, ranked honestly, even if the ranking is uncomfortable. These questions cut through the fog far faster than passively waiting to feel ready, because they target the actual mechanism keeping you stuck instead of treating the symptom as if it were the disease. Once you start asking sharper questions than the vague, comfortable ones, the fog you've been calling confusion tends to lift far faster than you expected, not because new information appeared, but because you finally stopped protecting yourself from the information you already had. Closing, the clarity that was always there. The next time you catch yourself saying you're confused, I want you to pause before accepting that word so easily. Ask whether you actually lack information, or whether you already know the answer and simply haven't found the courage to act on it yet. Ask whether you're facing two real, competing desires that require a loss either way, rather than one clean answer with no cost attached. Ask whether you've ever actually defined what matters most to you, or whether you're trying to weigh every decision without a compass. And ask honestly whether fear is quietly doing the talking while confusion gets the credit. Most of the time, the fog isn't hiding an answer you don't have. It's hiding one you do, one you've been circling for longer than you'd like to admit. Clarity doesn't usually arrive as some sudden lightning bolt from outside you. It's almost always already there, waiting patiently underneath everything you've been calling confusion, for the moment you finally stop protecting yourself from what you already know.